Welcome to Men Pursuing More. I'm your host, Roger Maupin. I believe every man has the potential to push past his limits and strive for something greater. Whether you're a former athlete who is looking for what's next, a professional pushing through the daily grind, or someone simply ready to break through life's toughest challenges, if you're ready to step into the pursuit of something more, your pursuit begins now. All right, welcome back to Men Pursuing More. I'm your host, Roger Maupin. I want to welcome Tyler Pheifer to the podcast. And our focus is on the month of September, and that is Recovery Month. And men who are attending Adult and Teen Challenge, and we'll be having a few episodes. We'll focus on the journey of a few men. So Tyler, let's get right into it, and let's give you an opportunity to share with the listeners your story.
All righty. I'm just so grateful to be here. And my name is Tyler. I'm 32 years old. And man, I had a drug addiction. I grew up in a using alcoholic home. My mom was an addict and my dad was an alcoholic. And they were never married. I don't have any brothers or sisters. I'm the only child. And I'm going to just touch on something that I've never really touched on at any other treatments I've been to. I'm currently a graduate of Minnesota Adult and Teen Challenge. So all the other treatments I had been to, I never fully addressed the trauma that happened to me as a kid. I'd always just talk about my drug use and never address the actual problems that I faced as a kid that happened to me. I was sexually assaulted at a young age, 4 to 5 years old, and I lived with fear my whole life, in fear of sharing that with people because I was afraid of being judged. I was afraid of being rejected. And that happened periodically throughout my childhood. Now, my mom used a lot of drugs, and she would drop me off at houses and her friends' houses or whatever and go do her thing. And so I wasn't really being watched properly. And there was events that happened and I didn't know who to tell. I was so young, I'm sure I really didn't understand. I didn't know it was wrong. And then as life carried on, it happened again in my teen years. Then I knew it was wrong, but I was so embarrassed really to share it with somebody because I was definitely afraid. And as a matter of fact, I tried telling my mom and she didn't really listen. The guy that was there kept uncovering me and I kept telling her that. And she was just like, he's sleeping, he's faking that he's sleeping and all this stuff. And she's in the other room getting high or whatever. And stuff like that happened periodically. And so I was just ashamed, embarrassed. But fast forward a bit, man, I really had a really good life. If you were to ask my mom my childhood, she would probably say that I was pretty spoiled, being an only child. I know that she loved me with all her heart. Being that I've been in addiction and she was in addiction, I can see how that addiction lifestyle was. And like my mindset was I wanted the drugs no matter what it took, no matter what it cost, I was going to get it. And I'm sure that was maybe her thinking of it. And so I don't blame her because I could only imagine her childhood or what happened to her as a kid that was unaddressed or whatnot. And so I just grew up with a father that was an alcoholic. He was a bartender for 35 years. Man, that was a man that I respected, I looked up to. We did everything together. We went duck hunting, we went fishing. He taught me how to ride a bike. He threw me in the deep end of a pool, taught me how to swim. But I looked up to him because he was a man of his word. I'll never forget. He told me, if I don't go to school the next day, then I'm not going with him to duck opener. And duck opener was something that was really, we looked forward to that. And sure enough, I didn't go to school and he didn't take me to duck opener. And that broke me. I'll never forget it. And ever since then, I just did my best to listen to him, respect him. He never missed a day of work in his life. He ever did, ever. He was just really consistent and he had discipline. And he was just a functioning alcoholic. I don't really think his mom was a Christian. Our family was a Christian, but he never really spoke about Jesus or God or nothing like that. I just remember so vividly my mom bringing me to church for wakeboarding camp, but I never really was introduced to Jesus or God. I just remember listening to rap music and the artist 50 Cent. He always had a cross on his necklace. And I, like, for whatever reason, looked up to that. And I was like, man, I want to be like him or whatever. And so I just vividly remember seeing a cross around his neck, not knowing what it meant, none of that. Didn't even know Jesus was involved, didn't know a God, none of that. And my first ever drink of alcohol was when I was 7 years old on a fishing trip with my dad. And we were ice fishing, and there was nothing left to drink. And he was like, "Here, drink this, but don't tell your mom or else she'll kill me." And I just remember feeling, oh man, I'm finally part of him. I'm trying to follow his footsteps. So I just felt like that was an honoring moment. And obviously, I didn't continue to drink after that. I just remember that vividly. My mom, man, we didn't stay in a location for no more than 2 to 3 years. So we were always on the move, been all over Minnesota. And I just remember like never spending much time in one school and moving to another. So like I didn't have much friends. And if I did get like any friends, they were taken away from me or tried to be taken away. There was this one guy that was always in my life, no matter where I went. Like they tried splitting us up and we just somehow kept reuniting. And everywhere I went, then he ended up living like 2 blocks down and we kept getting reunited and we skated together every day. We skateboarded every day. We were snowboarding every winter. And I'm still friends with him today, surprisingly, and he's sober, thank God. And so, yeah, that was just my life. It was chaotic. I dealt with a lot of rejection, abandonment, trying to find who I am in certain people, places, and things. I'm just gonna share a little story, like, and I'm sharing all this. I've already forgiven my mom. I've forgiven my dad, myself, and all of that. And it's just healing. I believe there's healing in this when I share it. And my intentions are when I share this to like whoever's listening to this, you're not alone. And whatever you're going through, I can guarantee you a lot of people have gone through it too. And just the important part of all of this is talking about it, dealing with the healing, walking in the healing. And so there were times where like me and my mom would get into arguments and a lot of verbal abuse, a lot of physical abuse was involved. And so many times where she would leave and I just remember like crying, begging her, don't leave, don't leave. And there was a time where I chased her down the driveway, begging her not to leave. And I'm like 10 years old crying and she would leave and I wouldn't see her for like weeks at a time, sometimes months. And so I grew up on my own as a kid. My dad was a bartender. I just knew what to say to him so he wouldn't come and check on me. I was really good at speaking and saying things are good, I'm okay, school's going great. And he just would believe it or whatever. And that was that. And there were times where I'd be in my mom's car for hours in the parking lot waiting for her to come out of this apartment that I'm in or that she was in. And I would always have Kid Rock CDs, Eminem CDs, 50 Cent CDs. And that was my way out, is listening to music. And that's how I made time go by. Like always, there was a time where I was in the vehicle with her and like she fell asleep at the wheel or something happened and like she veered off into a semi truck and the car got stuck onto the semi truck. And then miraculous, like it could have literally ran over me and killed us, but like the car just detached out of it. And yeah, I just remember just chaos, just growing up. But I really remember a lot of good times. There is a lot more good times than there are bad times. Being an only child, you really don't know that your parents are doing something, but you don't really know. And looking back at it, like I lived a good life, and I'm grateful for the life that I live. I'm grateful for my parents, my mom. She's an amazing mom. My dad was an amazing father. I learned a lot from him. I started smoking weed when I was 14 years old on Halloween night. And I did it just because the friend I was with was doing it. And it wasn't like I didn't know what I was doing. And I'd always smell weed growing up, but I never knew. So once I finally smelt it that night, I'm like, dang, this is what my mom's been doing, or this is what her friends have been doing in the car. And then I was like, man, now I'm finally like one of them or whatever. Slowly but surely, like I got my first possession of marijuana when I was 15 years old. Before I know it, I'm skipping school. I grew up in Eden Prairie most of my life. I spent from 12 to 17 in Eden Prairie. I was age 12 to age 17 is what I meant. And I just remember wanting to skip school to go smoke weed with the guys. And before I know it, I'm on truancy probation from skipping so much school. And now they're court ordering me to go to treatment. And I'm 16 years old. And I'm like, but I want to stay in school. So that what they went ahead and did is they court ordered me to this school called intensive day treatment. And it was a school that was located in St. Paul. A bus came and picked me up at 4:30 in Eden Prairie and brought me all the way to St. Paul. And I didn't get done until 5:30 and dropped back off at 6. And I did that for 2 years straight with no break. And I caught up on all of my credits. Like I was all caught up, ready to graduate. And I get back that school that I was at, they closed down. They shut down. They were no longer there. And Eden Prairie didn't know what I was talking about. They didn't have any of my records or none of it. They didn't know what I was talking about. There was no proof that what I did at that school was even valid. And man, I just remember thinking, like, are you kidding me? Like, I was set to graduate. I had like literally 6 months left. And they're like, you got to start back to where you left off at. And that would have been like eighth or ninth grade, right? And I'm like, no, I'm like, I'll try it. But eventually I gave up. I left. I'm like, this is not happening. And at that time I had done like hallucinogens, mushrooms, acid. I was off of probation, but I got back on it from another possession charge that I had. And they court ordered me to treatment. And that would have been my first treatment I went to. I went there for 52 days, graduated early. It was a 60-day program. I got out in 52 days. My mom and my PO were scared to tell me that I was off probation because they knew that I was just going to go right back to it. My mom got sober when I was 17. She went to a treatment, got sober, was born again Christian. And I just remember I supported her throughout her walk a little bit. Like I would bike with her in the winter storm to AA meetings. She didn't have a vehicle. She was working to get her license back, to get her life back. And me and her were just colliding, like colliding. She found out I did drugs. It was all bad. And so she gave me the ultimatum, like either I stay here and be sober with her or you got to go. And at the time I had a girlfriend and I was like, you know what, I'm going to go. And so I left. And then I lived with that girl for 8 months. That didn't work. Man, so I met her friends and was just like house hopping from one girl's house to another. And I was going through phases. One time I was drinking for 2 years. Got into a fight. I was just very angry when I was drunk. I didn't really like alcohol. I just did it because it was around. Went to jail for the first time because I got charged with Xanax. I had Xanax on me. I was doing that for a while. It was just chaotic there too. I was in and out of drugs. I remember telling myself like I'm never gonna do meth because I seen what it did to my mom. And eventually I got introduced to Adderall, and that's the synthetic of methamphetamines. Before then, it was, what was it, Ritalin. Before then, it was Ritalin, then it was Adderall. And before I know it, it was Molly. And I took a UA for my PO. I got put back on probation because of the felony fifth-degree possession of Xanax. And I remember him saying, Mr. Pheifer, he was like, why is there methamphetamines in your system? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I was like, man, I did Molly the other night. And he was like, Mr. Pheifer. He was this big college black dude, played football. He was a solid PO. And he was like, there's methamphetamines in Molly, right? And I'm like, what? And that broke me. I'm like, no. I was like, that cannot be happening. Because I knew, like, I promised myself I was never going to be around people that did meth. I was never going to ever do meth because I just seen what it did. And it scared me because I fell in love with that high. And man, part of me just gave up. For one, I forgot to mention, like, my first felony, I'm not allowed to go duck hunting. So then there goes that failure, and there goes all this trickling effect that is just slowly going down. And I'm just like, this cannot be happening. And before I know it, like, I was around people that were like robbing people. I got mixed up in with some gang activity, and we are robbing people to get drugs. And before I know it, we want to rob this dude that has meth because we're trying to make more money. And that went down. We had the meth. We realized we didn't know anybody that did meth. So like we were just stuck with this meth. And one thing led to another. We tried it. And I was on Xanax at the time and I blacked out. And before I know, so my mom is dating this pastor. And at the time he had a sober house in Champlin. And I was able to stay there or whatever. I go back there and I like ended up trying to fight him. I don't remember none of it. My mom had to tell me. And that kind of scared me because I'm like, dang, I don't remember none of that. And I tried fighting this pastor. I'm like, what is going on? What has my life come to? And I got this tattoo when I was 19 years old, and it was a cross. It's a cross. I know you guys can't see it, but I'm showing him. It's a cross. And a year later, I find myself throwing up. And I'm thinking I'm hungover. I find myself not being able to hold any food down. At the time, me and my mom were definitely not getting along, and like she's worried because I'm out here running amok. I'm just, going hard or whatever. And she just is so worried and scared for me. And so I told her, I was like, I can't hold down no food. I don't know what's going on. I'm not hungover. I was like, I need to go to the hospital. And she wasn't even responding. She didn't believe me, none of that. And so I called the ambulance. They came and picked me up. And I remember they were like, "Are you on any drugs?" And I'm like, "I smoke weed and I drink." Well, I guess that's a red flag to them because they just probably thought I was just trying to get pain medications. I was telling them, like, my chest hurts, something is not right. And they brought me in, they gave me Percocet, and then they released me. And I'm like, I couldn't even hold those down. Like, I was like, I don't know what's going on. A week later, maybe even 4 days later, I called them again. I was like, I got to come in. Something is not right. And so they brought me to the Mayo side or whatever or the U of M, and come to find out my liver's failing on me. And I was like, what? No, like my whole body is jaundiced. Like my eyes are yellow. My whole body's yellow. And he was like, "Do you use needles?" And I was like, "Oh," I was like, "I got this tattoo." And he was like, "Dang, that must have been a dirty needle," because it was an underground tattoo. It wasn't a professional tattoo. And now I remember him telling my mom from afar. I was on the bed and I was like on my deathbed, and he was like, either he's looking at dying because his white blood cell count is at 16,000 and it's supposed to be at 6, and they weren't giving me anything for the symptoms to heal my body or nothing. They were just giving me pain medication like IVs. And my mom was dating that pastor, and so at the time, let me, I'm going to backtrack after this story, but he comes in, put hands on me, prays over me. And at the time, I'm a baby Christian. I got saved in a jail cell. My first charge, I ended up in jail, scared for my life, got saved, was crying in front of all these dudes that I've never been in front of. And I'm like, super, like the Holy Spirit got a hold of my heart in that jail cell. And so he comes, put hands on me, prays over me, speaks in tongues, and I was in full belief that he was going to heal me, but I didn't really understand God at that time. But I just knew that this dude's a pastor. Like he came, did that, left, and 4 days later, my body's starting to recoup, and it's slowly but surely starting to get back to normal. My white blood cell counts back to normal. I had to learn how to walk because my body was shutting down, and I got released. And man, it's crazy because like after I got released, I went back to doing what wasn't working because I still wanted to get high. I got introduced to this new high, and I just had a life or death experience and I was unaware of it. And so in order for me to complete this probation again, I had to go to treatment. And my mom was like just pushing Teen Challenge down my throat. And I was young. I was 21 at the time. And her friend worked there, so she knew about Teen Challenge. And it was just like I got court ordered to treatment to Teen Challenge again. And I went there, and I was supposed to do 30 days. The judge was like, "You're going to do 30 days and then you're going to get released." So I get there, and I remember them saying, "You're going to actually be doing 90 days." And I'm like, "No." I was like, "No, I heard the judge say 30 days. I'm not doing 90 days here. No way." And man, I ended up doing 90 days. And well, Teen Challenge, the short term's connected to the long term, so you get the opportunity to be in chapel with the long term brothers and see what long term's all about. You get to potentially talk to the long term brothers and see what it's all about, or talk to the staff about long term. And all you hear is long term and how like good and beneficial it is. And my mom would come visit me and they would tell her about long term. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so, mind you, I'm going into this program not thinking I had a problem, didn't want to change, was just trying to complete probation and go back to getting high. And so when I went into treatment this time, I'm slowly getting convinced that maybe I have a problem. And I do 90 days. I decided to go to long term, went to long term for 8 months. So let's see, 5 months was it short term for three. So it was like 9 months total. I was just rebellious. Like, you're not allowed to have your phone. I had my phone in there. I had vapes in there. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to do none of that. And I was just rebellious. I was not ready to change. I didn't want to change. I wanted to do it my way. And eventually I got caught with my phone and I left. I gave up, called my mom. I said, "I'm done. I don't need a paper to keep me sober. I don't need graduation to tell me I'm going to be sober." And I was just so like against the rules. And so I was out there for 4 months and it got bad quick, super quick. Like I was smoking meth. I was at the casino. I was new to it. 4 months, it got bad quick. And I remember calling my PO and I'm like, "Johnny," I was like, "I got to go back to Teen Challenge and finish what I started." And so then I was like, because I was scared of how bad it got. But so I went back to Teen Challenge, and I'm in short term. You got to do short term before you go to long term. And I just remember at the time my dad moved to Montana, and I was talking to my dad, and he was like, "I want you to come live with me out in Montana." And I'm like, "Oh, I want to so bad," because I had already been out there 2 times, got to see it. It's beautiful out there. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. and he wanted me to come live with him. And I just remember thinking like, I wanted to tell him that I just found Jesus and I wanted to see what he had for me, but I was too scared to tell him that. And so I thought of something better, and I was like, I thought was better. I was like, my PO won't let me. And I just can't. I got to finish this program. I know I got to finish it. And when all reality, if I would have just asked my PO, I'm sure he would have let me. And I just told him I can. And that conversation just ended so violently. Like, he was drunk on the phone, I could tell, but I could hear it in his heart that like he was hurt that I couldn't go live with him. And so that night there was no I love yous. We just hung up the phone. And so then I went to long term, and I remember telling myself, I was like, when I get to long term, I'm just going to tell him that Jesus saved my life. He saved me from whatever, you know what I'm saying? At the time, I was still a baby Christian. And 5 days later, literally 5 days later, when I went to long term, my mom came on a non-visiting day. And she was in this room. And I just remember something was off because the staff weren't looking at me. They were just avoiding me, and I could just feel something was off. And it's really bizarre because before then I'm doing a contract, a PST or whatever. It's an assignment from Teen Challenge, and John 3:16, and they were like, describe to me what this verse means to you in your own words. And I just remember vividly saying, it lets me know that my heavenly Father loves me and will be here for me no matter what, even if my earthly father passes. And I have it written down still to this day. I'll never forget it. And my mom comes to come see me. She's in this room with staff. My mom's bawling. She's just bawling. And she looked at me and she was like, your dad's dead. He passed away. Oh, man. I just remember. And she told me, she was like, the sheriff said they found him pulled over on the side of the highway in Montana. And all I could see when she told me that is just my dad's, his head is like over this at the wheel. And it was just, I just was like in disbelief. I'm like, this cannot be happening. Like, what? And man, that was a hard time. I was 2 months in the program. My dad passed away. And now I'm realizing like this is real. This is real. And this was not part of the plan. This was not part of the plan. I just remember so vividly. And I'm thinking like, even if I would have made the choice to go live with him, like he still would have passed away. And so in a sense, like now that like I'm getting healed, like more healed from it, because it was 9 years ago it happened, I'm seeing like God has a specific plan for me, a specific plan, and I just see that so vividly. And that night when I was in the chapel, bawling my eyes out, just so angry, there was this song that was playing, and it's called Relent. And there was a lyric in there that I remember, and the lyric of it was, for there is love that is as strong as death, jealousy demanding at the cross. And I just remember the pain that I felt in my chest from my dad's death was so strong, so strong. And I just remember telling God, if there's love that is as strong as death, I was like, I need that right now, because my best friend is gone. And it was very difficult. And so I went throughout the program, and man, and I still didn't graduate because I was still rebellious. I did 15 months. I got a few setbacks, which is found a girl in the program, and we were writing in the program, writing notes, and I was breaking the rules, and I was still rebellious. I was like 21, 22 years old, left. She left. I ended up living with her for about a year and a half, 2 years. And that's when our addiction took off big time, like big time. And I just remember, oh man, it got bad really quick, really quick. And it sucks because it could have lasted if we didn't get high and whatnot and whatnot. And so that happened, and we had our own apartment. I had my own vehicle for the first time. I had my first job. I was making good money. She was making good money. And I'm not going to say her name because for whatever reason, but I remember she came home one night, and she had her lips were numb when I kissed her. And I just remember thinking, man, what was that? What the heck? And come to find out, she did coke that night. And I was like, if you're gonna do coke, then I'm gonna do meth. It's such a messed up thinking. And we didn't really know how to do meth, so we looked up on how to smoke it or whatever, and then our lives just went downhill from there so bad. I lost my job, I lost my car, she lost her job. Before I know it, we got evicted. Or she didn't lose her car, because then we were living out of her car. This winter was so cold. It was one of the coldest winters of Minnesota, I swear it was. And we maintained that for a while. Before I know it, like things aren't working. things aren't working at all. I was on dating websites. I wasn't being faithful, but I never cheated on her. I just had intentions to, because meth really messes with your mind, and it's so demonic. It just got me to do things that I would never ever do in my sober mind. And eventually we agreed to go to treatment. I went to Metro Hope. She didn't go. And so then we just broke up and split ways. So now I'm gonna just fast forward a little bit. And then, so my life was really going downhill. Before I know it, I'm smoking meth every single day. I'm losing it. I've lost best friends. I've burned bridges. Me and my mom are definitely not getting along. She is just praying that God intervenes. Before I know it, I'm like house hopping. I'm one house to another, robbing people. I'm catching felonies. I'm homeless. Before I know it, like I'm in and out of jail. It's just stuck on repeat. I'm just crying out outside. I'm like, please help me. Nobody's there to help me. And I just felt so helpless so many times. And I just would walk so much on my feet that like my feet would hurt so bad. I wouldn't have like good shoes. There would be holes in my shoes. My feet would callus up. They would just have blisters on them. They would be wet, and then it would be cold. And so I wouldn't know, and I'd get frostbite. And I just couldn't walk. There were times where I would be in the fetal position on this bench because my feet would hurt so bad. I walked so much that I had a small fracture in my ankle, went to the hospital. I guess I had a small fracture in both of them, but they only put a boot on the wrong foot, and I got released. And I woke up to seeing that like they had the boot on the wrong foot. And I'm like, are you kidding me? What is going on? And so they were like, you're free to go home. And I just remember thinking, I don't have a home to go to. And so I just walked out of there with two fractures, one boot. I'm a wreck. And I go back to getting high because that was the only thing that was taking the pain away. So I thought, but it was just making it worse.
You were made for more clarity, more confidence, more impact. At Maupin Coaching, I help high school and college athletes master the mental game and guide men into purpose-driven leadership. Grab the sports book, rock the merch coming soon, and step into more at maupincoaching.com.
My mom's like, you need to get help. What are you doing? And she never gave up on me, but there were times where I thought she did. And I think she did just because she loved me enough just to let me go. And she gave me to God. And I see that 100%. And I thank her for that. And I'm just a hurting unit. I'm just so broken. My dad's gone. I'm blaming everybody. I'm just trying to get money. I'm just helpless, and been to many other treatments. I had God in my life, and there was times where I was so high, I was reading scripture, and it just was so dark and demonic. And I thought the feds, the gang stalkers or whatever, I thought people were following me. I was so paranoid. People wouldn't even want to be around me because the things I was making up in my mind, I would make them try to become reality. Like anything I thought of in my mind, I would believe it, and then it would become my reality. And so then I would try to tell others, like, look, this is happening. Look, I would try to tell them what I'm seeing or what's happening. And they were looking at me like I'm crazy, because I'm sure I was. But it's just like I was on survival mode, and I was just hurt. I was not grieving properly. And I felt alone. So many times I felt alone. And it just was 9 years since I had been to Teen Challenge. I remember telling people out there, dude, I'm not ever going back to Teen Challenge. Nope, there's no way I'm ever going back. And I'm going to just backtrack a little bit. There was this time I was in the car with a best friend of mine, and I was around fentanyl all the time, but fentanyl wasn't my thing. And he, I guess, did a shot of fentanyl. I didn't know. And we were in his car on the highway. And before I know it, he's falling out at the wheel, like hitting the gas, hitting the brake, hitting the gas on the highway, going 50 miles an hour. And I'm freaking out. I'm like, dude, what is going on? And like, when his foot hit the brake, I held it, right? And so we come to a complete stop. I used the steering wheel and turned to the side, shut the car off. And I can only imagine, this didn't look right, but I was just so concerned. And I run around, open his door, pick him up. I must have been super strong, like 160 pounds at the time. Pick him up, drag him out, and put him in the passenger seat. And then I hop in the driver's seat. I hop on my phone, GPS to an emergency place. And boom, doing 150 on this highway because my best friend is in the passenger seat, passed over, face purple, lips blue. sweating like he is dead. He was for sure dead. And I just remember thinking, this cannot be happening. Like, what? He didn't have Narcan on him. There was nothing but drugs and money in the middle console. And here I am doing 150 on the highway trying to get to the ER. The moment I pulled into the ER, he was like, woke up out of nowhere, scared the life out of me. And he was like, "What are we doing here? We can't be at the, take me out of here." I was like, "Dude, you were dead. Like, you were dead, yo. There was like no doubt about it. You were dead." And that happened many times. Like, not in the car, but like he would overdose at a hotel we were staying at, and like best friends would like hop on his chest and try to bring him back to life. We didn't have Narcan, and it was just many times I witnessed him almost dying. And it just broke me so many times because like after a while, like you learn to just control it and be calm and try to bring him back to life. And it just was so chaotic. So many times that happened. And I was living out of hotels with women nonstop. And it was just so chaotic. I was getting tired. Just getting really tired. And so this last time I had 4 warrants out for my arrest. And because I missed court, and so I had 4 warrants out for my arrest, and I was in Richfield, and I was sleeping on this couch, and I woke up to the sheriffs right in front of me, picking me up out of my sleep. I'm passed out. They picked me up and they said, "Put your hands behind your back. You're under arrest." And I'm like, "What?" I hear everybody in the house saying they're sorry, and I'm like, What are you sorry for? What happened?" I don't know how. Only thing I could think of is God knew I was there. Like, God took me out of that place, like Psalm 18. He rescued me from my powerful enemies and led me to a place of safety. And at that time, jail was my safety place, right? Because I had, just before them coming, I had did a line of fentanyl. I didn't even know it was fentanyl. I'm shocked I didn't die. I immediately hopped up, went on my longboard and went skating and didn't die. And it's just the dude was like, "Sorry, didn't even know I left that there. Sorry." If I would have died, it was just sorry. And so God seen something and picked me up and put me to a place of safety. And jail was my safety place. And my intentions were to just see a judge, go back to go getting high and doing what wasn't working. But that judge was like, "We've given you so many chances. Why should we give you another chance?" And I'm like, I gotta go back to Teen Challenge and finish where I started. Cause like she said, I was sentenced to a long period of time in prison. And I just remember thinking, Teen Challenge is 13 months. Can I go back there? And she was like, "We, if you can prove that Teen Challenge is a residential program and that there's a bed open for you," she was like, "then you can go to Teen Challenge." And I just remember hanging on to that hope. That was that hope that I needed right there. And at that point in time, I was committed. I just wanted to change. I was so sick of that life. And so I did 60 days in the county. And September 26th, Teen Challenge came and picked me up and brought me to Teen Challenge. And so when I got to Teen Challenge, it was just so welcoming. I'll just never forget it. The love that they had, their arms wide open, so welcoming for me to come back. And I'll touch back a little bit. When I was in jail, there was this fight that happened, and it was between me and a best friend of mine. We were at a Bible study. I'll just quickly, and long story short, it was so loud in there, and you have a Bible study, you can't really hear that much. And I just remember talking to the guy to the right of me, and I was like, "Man," I was like, "I'm gonna go back to my room. I really can't hear this guy. It's just not, it's too loud in here." So I went back to my cell, and when the Bible study was done, my best friend at the time, or still is now, I guess, I forgave him, and comes up and he's, "If all you're gonna do is talk crap about me, why even go to this Bible study?" And I'm like, "What?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "I left because I couldn't hear." And he was like, "Yeah, okay." And I just and I like pulled up my pants, like because they're like really baggy or whatever. And I think he took that as like I was trying to fight him or something. I don't know. And that we have tablets there, and he threw his tablet at my ankles, and I picked it up. And as I was picking it up, he cheap shot at me in the face, and all the COs seen it. They're running up with their mace in their hands, and it's a code red. Everybody back into their cell. I go to the hole, and so I had a thought. I was like, either I'm gonna swing back or I'm not gonna, because I'm just so tired and I don't want him to feel pain and I don't want to feel pain anymore, and I'm just so done. And it was that quick thinking where I'm like, I'm not even gonna swing. So I go to the hole. I requested one thing. I was like, "Can I please have my Bible?" Because I was in the Word for once. I was like, God revealed Himself to me. I was in the Word, right? And she gave me my Bible the next day, and it's the 20th. And with Proverbs, there's 31 Proverbs, sometimes 31 days. And I'm just knee deep in Proverbs because God's revealing Himself to me through the Proverbs. And it's the 20th. And so I'm reading and I get to verse 3. And Proverbs 20, verse 3 says, avoiding a fight is a mark of honor. Only fools insist on quarreling. And it was that connection that was right there with me and God, that he just revealed himself. He was like, because you avoided that fight, that's a mark of honor. And I just started bawling in the hole. And I'm like, oh, it was just so powerful. I'll never forget it. And that's the first time God really showed himself to me in a mighty way, where I was able to address the fact that was God. And so then I'll fast forward, I get the teen challenge, and all this stuff is happening, all these signs that God is showing himself to me. Like when you get into a teen challenge, there's two doors before you get into the main chapel. The first door, it had this number on it and it said 711 A, right? And the time I was born was 7:11 p.m. And so there was that connection. I'm like, oh man, I'm like, what? I'm like, this is not happening. This is real. Because in my addiction, I was so stuck in a psychosis where I was thinking like, when this was real to me, now that I'm sober and following Jesus, and all this is happening. And then so I get there, do short term, and I'm in that chapel just healing, because the last time I was there, like I was just giving it my all because my dad passed away and all this stuff. And now it's just full circle of me just, I'm all in this time. I just remember being all in. And so all that's happening. And the same room that I found out my dad passed away was now the same room that I had group in. And so there was so much healing. Now, when I went into that room, I didn't have, first I had the flashback of how it was when my mom was there telling me my dad passed. But now it was just a closure part of my coming back to Teen Challenge. There was so much closure that was happening. I go to long term, and I'm in this prayer room and I'm in there faithfully. And I just remember in the word, and I remember opening up and I'm like, I wonder what chapter 7 verse 11 says in Song of Songs, because I was so into King Solomon and all of that. And I look and I seen what it said, and then I like literally look to my right. Songs of Songs chapter 8 verse 6 says, for there is love that is as strong as death. And I'm like, what? I'm like, that's a verse in the Bible? Because that was the same lyric that was stuck in my head from the night my dad passed away. And when I seen that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like, God just brought me to this verse, but to show me that this is an actual verse. And when I seen that, I just was like in full awe of, wow, God just brought me here to this room, to this verse. And me and my dad's things it was a bald eagle, right? That was like me and our dad's thing. We love bald eagles. I looked out the window. I'm telling you what, an eagle flew, like it literally looked like it was on top of the roof. It was flying away from me. And I'm in awe. I'm like, no, I'm like, I gotta go get somebody. And I'm like, no, this is a personal thing from God sent to me. And I'm watching this bald eagle just soar around. And it's in the cities. What is a bald eagle doing in the cities, right? And it's going in circles. It does 3 circles and it comes back, and it literally looked like it landed on top of the roof above me in the prayer room at Portland House. And I'm just like, oh, I'm crying, I'm a wreck, and and it's healing. There was closure with that. And so I'm just like on fire for the Lord. And he's revealed himself to me in so many ways that where I could not deny the fact that Jesus Christ is Lord. You know what I'm saying? There was no way. It was so intimate. I'll backtrack a bit. The second time I went to Teen Challenge, I did the STD screen or whatever. And I was like, it's going to be positive for Hep C because of my tattoo, the thing and all that. It comes back all negative. I'm like, no, that can't be. Like, send it again, all negative. So God healed me. Like, I don't have Hep C anymore from that time. God is just showing himself to me in mighty ways. And so I knew Teen Challenge was going to be hard this time because I was all in. Like, I wasn't here to like cut corners. I wasn't here to do shortcuts. I knew what not to do, because all the other times I was breaking rules. I was being rebellious. And so I was just all in, and the devil knew that. So he was trying to throw me off, and he was trying to throw curveballs. And while I was in short term, there was a fight that broke off again, and I got hit in the face, right? And I didn't swing back, because I wasn't here to fight my way through the program. I was here to fight like Jesus did. And the staff, they reviewed the cameras. They see that I didn't swing. They seen that I was in full defense mode, and that guy got kicked out, and I was there. And so like, I knew it was real. I knew that this was going to be painful physically, mentally, but it was going to be worth it. It was going to be so worth it, because I know that God had a specific plan for me. And another thing, my dad's birthday, so Christmas is December 25th. My dad's birthday was December 26th, right? And so he passed away February 25th. I found out a day later that he passed away February 26th. The day I got picked up was July 26th, 2023. That's my sober date. And I get to Teen Challenge September 26th. And so I'm like, wait a second. I'm like, man, that's like perfect timing. I'm like, how in the heck? I'm like, man, God really picked me up and chose me and placed me at the right place at the right time. And I'm just like, man, so now when my dad's birthday comes or his death comes, the day that he passed away, it's not like a mourning time. It's like a joyful time because that's my sober date now. And it's just so, like, God is showing himself to me in all these ways. And it's so amazing. I'm just in awe. And I've finally completed Teen Challenge, successfully graduated the program, decided to go to TCLI, which is the leadership program. And I've been here for just about 10 months. I got 2 months left. I got a job as a recovery coach at Portland House, the same house I graduated from. My mom got baptized because of my walk. Like, me and my mom have the best relationship ever. This place is amazing, and it's all because of Jesus. I know that 100%. Like, if they would have taken Jesus out of the program, like, everything would be funded. But being that, like, Jesus is the center of it, like, we have to go to churches, we have to do choirs, or we don't have to, we get to. And we get to do all this stuff. And it's all because of Jesus, and it's for Jesus no matter what. Even though I'm doing it for a paycheck, it's still for Jesus. And like, I've never been so committed before to anything because I was so committed in my addiction. Now I'm committed in my faith walk. And I know as long as I seek Jesus and keep him first, sobriety comes with it. I'm not a big fan of AA. I go to church, I serve, I do all that. And so now here I am, and I'm just so grateful to be here, man. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate you sharing your story. And I got one last question for you, kind of wrap this up. Since you've been through Adult and Teen Challenge a number of times, I'm sure that's not uncommon. I know I had a sister that was addict for 20 plus years. And what you were talking about, she did it all. And she was at the point of, she was probably going to die, or she put herself in a recovery or a rehab, and she got healed. Amen. But I think for those listeners out there, what are some final thoughts that you'd want to leave with others that have gone through maybe recovery and maybe have gone through recovery many times and or are considering maybe their first time? Because there's probably a number of them, listeners and maybe listeners that know someone that's maybe been through it a number of different times, like yourself, and they just have given up. So what are some final thoughts you want to give those out there and all the listeners too, of some final thoughts?
Okay, yeah, I would say just make sure you're all in, truly all in, and really make sure the reasons you're doing it is for yourself. Because I've done it for my mom, I've done it for probation, courts, girlfriends, and it never worked because like it wasn't pure and that my intentions weren't real. And then I would have to say one more thing is to not compare yourself to somebody else. Just make sure the only person that you're trying to be better from is yourself, but have no comparison to anybody else. I truly believe that like comparison is definitely, it's no good. And I've always tried to compare myself to others like, oh man, but I'm not where that person's at. But no, but God has you right where you're at for a reason. And you just got to keep seeking Jesus. Man, my mindset before coming to Teen Challenge, I was lost. I was hearing things. It was demonic. And the only thing that set me free truly was reading scripture. Truly 100%. That is the only way, because that was the only truth that I knew that was truth that I needed in my life. And yeah, that's what I would say.
Just going along with it, what you just said, God has you, I just wrote this down, has you here for this moment.
Yeah.
To share your story on this podcast and just the impact this is going to make on, it's called Men Pursuing More, but I have men and women listen to this podcast. Awesome. The impact this is going to have on others and how those others can also share that with others. And I want to thank you for your willingness to share your story, Tyler. This is going to be impactful. And I just want to share with the listeners, hey, that's a wrap with Tyler Pheifer. And I want to thank you for being part of this special monthly episode on Recovery Month in September. And also just a shout out to Adult and Teen Challenge. And this is Men Pursuing More podcast.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great day.
Yep, you too.
Hey, thanks for listening to Men Pursuing More podcast. Don't forget to follow us at maupincoaching.com.